You can go ahead if you want to. I just was listening to this guy talk about AEW and about the CM Punk, but I'll even go further back. I remember when this AEW thing started. And I can remember, liking it to a degree, and at first I thought it was going to be something nice, something cool. Um, I liked parts of it. There was this big buzz about this new company and Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, as I call them, Young Bucks, and this whole thing where Kenny Omega and all this stuff, and there's a bunch of indie indie guys that have been on the indies or been over in Japan, with the exception of Cody Rhodes. You know, they really didn't have any name value. I mean, Cody Cody probably put on the best match that AEW has ever had with Goldust, as I call him, Goldust. Um, and they had that great storyline, that great build, and I argue that's probably Cody's best match ever put on by AEW. And they let the two guys go out there, the brothers. They have a history together, and it made sense. And that was like their first pay per view. That goes to what was it, Double or Nothing, 2019. So you know, you get these people and these, you know, and everything. You had I can't remember all of them, but you had a bunch of these guys like, you know, um, all this whole roster was basically full of just random guys, that didn't have hardly any value. Tag teams, like I said, mostly of no name value. I mean, they had a couple of guys like a Cody Rhodes. They had um, Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels, and a couple of them like that, and they had a couple of, like Jericho. Jericho was one of the real big signee at the time. Well, you can just take Jericho for example, and they made a big deal out of him leaving WWE. And he goes over and has one of these silly matches in Japan with old Kenny Omega, and then and then you trace what they did with Jericho from that first point on up to till now. Jericho's almost an afterthought. His like the first 6 or 8 months of AEW, he was all over it. They had good storyline. They had him as a champion, which I knew was going to happen because they didn't want to lose the value of that title, giving it to Adam Page at the time. So they thought, well, somebody will remember that Chris Jericho was the first AEW, world champion. And I tell you, I just, I used to watch it every Wednesday, and I used to keep up with it, but they just keep. It's almost like it don't even register, and they're only getting so many, people to watch, and there's only so many, so many, guys that you can come up with, and so many things that you can do. And the women's thing as it is, a bunch of them Japanese, women that's hardly 100 pounds, if not 90 pounds, soaking wet, and they there for a while they had a crush on Riho, and then letting her go out there and act like she could beat up these much bigger, much more impressive women that squashed her like a bug. But you know, they got AEW. To me, AEW is just another version of TNA, and to hear that AEW basically copied TNA's philosophy. Vince there in the beginning, he wasn't. The funny thing with him was Vince. He took what the philosophy. He was kind of at first. I wouldn't want to say he was scared, but he was kind of on the fence. He didn't know exactly what was coming or what to expect. But as it went on, everybody had their. And I remember back in 2018 when they had their first thing called All In, and they had a big pay-per-view and this big old independent show kind of thing with ROH funding it. That's that show really only had one or two matches on it that would have made any difference. The ladies had a pretty good match. I remember they had a good one, and the Cody match with Nick Aldis. And they had if anybody remembers, they had Rey Mysterio of all people on their first pay-per-view, if you want to count that as AEW's first pay-per-view. Rey Mysterio was on there in the main event, no less, with a bunch of idiots that you probably, either see on AEW today. I don't know. I think it was Young Bucks and a couple of other, other people. But like I said, a lot of them is either people that's already been in Japan and around. And this kind of goes with where, you trace back WCW, they did the same thing. Vince, these people left Vince. They didn't fire them. They left Vince. And, they started getting all these guys more money. TNA practically did the same thing in their early years. They had the Christians. They had all the ones AEW's got. CM Punk. This is the most recent of biggies. And then now they got Samoa Joe. See, they're copying the whole thing. It's just like, well, Derek, what more do you? What can we do? Well, you're gonna have to, like I said, one of these days, WWE's already seeing this problem. They keep bringing back, Goldberg and the whole bunch of, just the same thing. And even the Stone Cold thing, I popped for that because I thought, man, well, that'd be the only time, he'll probably do a match, and he was lucky you got what you got, with that. But, I didn't like the opponent, but, I didn't even think it was going to be a match. So that's why I wasn't really excited about it. And then it kind of turned it into one. But it was kind of what I thought. If there's going to be a match, Stone Cold was going to do 90-something% of the, offense. Because there's no way he's going to get dropped on his head, his neck. He's not going to be doing nothing. I mean, he took one suplex out there on the concrete. That was about it. And then a little bump into the ring barrier, and I think it was a head, or looked like a head shot to the ring post. That was it. So the whole thing with CM Punk, though, he's one of them things that he had his run in WWE, and I remember the fans would not shut up. Every time I turn around, CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk. And then he got to where Stephanie McMahon and a bunch of them's like, y'all can keep that up for 2 more minutes, and you'll last one more second longer than CM Punk did, or whatever that was, And they'd have fun with it. Well, and the crowd, they really, I think CM Punk really messed up. Because AEW, I got why probably he thought that would be best, because his history with Triple H and the whole thing where he didn't get his main event at WrestleMania and all that stuff. Well, you know, he really, if he wanted it that bad, the way I look at it, he would have went along with the program because originally, take Daniel Bryan out of the situation, it was supposed to be CM Punk versus Triple H. So, and this has come out in a lot of interviews, and it was said by CM Punk, and he told him then that he didn't want to do it anymore. He'd had enough of the wrestling, and he didn't want to be in it anymore. Well, then basically he waits, and he's not old, but he's not, he's about, he's a little bit older than me, and he's had that thing where he thought he wanted to be a UFC fighter, and that's the worst thing in the world that he could have done. He's lucky they didn't knock his brains out in there. But he's lucky he got the opponents he got, because they had been somebody that if they weren't looking out for him, they could have stuck him in there with somebody that if it was the old UFC when they didn't have all them weight limits and all that stuff like they do now. If it'd been the old UFC, they just went in there and knocked him out, and he probably wouldn't wanted to remember it ever been in UFC if it was like the old days. But when they first started, they didn't have but two rules. I think it was no eye gouging and no low blows. I think it's the only things you couldn't do. You could grab the fence, which now you can't do. Now you can't do so many certain things. I can't remember now all the rules. They've changed so many of them now. But it used to be basically doing anything. You could do anything. The weight class. That's one thing's changed very much. Is weight classes. Of course they have a women's thing now. But yeah, CM Punk. I was on board with it. I even watched went back, watched the whole thing where he came out and did his whole deal. And that I thought was really nice. I actually thought it was okay, although I thought it was a little more WWE, stuff. He started talking about all that stuff, and and he tried to pull one of those pop bombs, as he calls them, promos, and fans already seen that. I mean, his home crowd, that was why he wanted to come there to do that. But then he started getting ridiculous. He started coming out every week. And, he was talking. He wasn't doing no wrestling. He just come out there and talk. My wife seen him. After a while, it just gets old, and so the caliber of guys that was putting him in there with, the Darby Allin match, I could have probably said okay. Like that one guy said, it was okay, but it wasn't anything, like it's going to be anything great. But CM Punk's whole character and his whole thing is wore off. Has been a good guy thing. It probably is kind of getting stale on him, and and plus he can't do as much as he probably could in his earlier run with WWE. But I argue he should have patched things up with WWE, and he should have probably came back. At least they would have probably given him. Almost certainly they would have.
Go.
Hey, you ready to go?
Ready to go,
But anyway, yeah, I think they've really AEW is as guilty at fault for the same thing that all these other companies do. And you know, they let Vince see Vince was doing, you know, he's hurt himself, but he's also hurt AEW now because now they've got all the big guys. They've got the Daniel Bryans, they got the CM Punks, they got all that. Now they even got most of the women stars now, or a few of them. If they ain't there, they're in TNA or Impact, whatever you call it mess. So it's, you know, it's become a you know, and now, you know, Tony Khan just backed himself in the corner. He's, you know, got ROH and all that now. Yeah, she's probably gonna get her something to eat.
I'm gonna get you something to eat.
Say, probably bring us something home, mind her.
Yeah, she probably will.
Well,
All right, we'll be back in a little bit.
all right.
Love you.
Love you, hon.
Bye, baby.
Bye. But no, CM Punk, hey, his whole deal with, you know, not wanting to wrestle for all these years, and then he comes back and he's just wrestling one here, one there, and he's wrestling on these shows. It's AEW Dark, AEW Dynamite. I argue Dynamite might have been all right as a name to call your show, but now they've got all this YouTube and they got all this other stuff. This guy, this Tony Khan, I honestly don't think he knew what he was doing. He saw an opportunity and he had a bunch of these guys like Cody Rhodes. See, Cody Rhodes and Brandy ain't even in AEW now. And he won't say exactly what it was. I'm sure it wasn't about money. I'm sure they would have paid him a large sum to stay if he wanted to stay. But, you know, it's gotten to that point where wrestling, no matter what the new organization comes up, they go and revert back to these guys that's in their late 30s, early 40s, maybe even, you know, by the next time there's you know, they've got Sting over there at AEW. What do you need Sting for? You know, there's all these things. I mean, you can make an argument. You know, should CM Punk be an AEW World Champion? Well, you know, I don't know. But I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't mind seeing it. I mean, it'd be better than that Adam Page junk they got. At least he would have some draw. But yeah, I don't know quite what to make of you know, AEW. All this talk, all this hype. I'm surprised that you know, I can guarantee you had AEW tried to start up 20 years ago, we probably would be in a different, you know, we probably wouldn't even be talking right now. AEW wouldn't even, you know, because they didn't want WCW on their network. You know, that's why Vince bought them. But no, it got me to thinking that, man, I just don't care whether AEW is up or not. I don't care to order their pay per views no more. I've seen everything. I've seen the Daniel Bryans, the CM Punks, and you can sit there and name them all. Edge. Well, Edge is up now. Back it up. Edge is on WWE. Christian. That's how I was trying to think of. Christian. I mean, you can sit here and roll them off. There's probably at least 30, 40, 50 of them that's come in, come out. And they're all the cast offs that we saw in their 20s and you know, in their 20s at probably at most of them. And you've seen them on TNA, you saw them on every organization. So Tony Khan's wrestling. I'll just say this in short. It don't look very promising. It don't look very good. The whole thing with, you know, how it's structured has went completely. You know, the TBS title doesn't make sense for the women. The TNT title doesn't make sense for the men. because I would just call it the TV title. You know, AEW TV Championship. Why not just say that? Don't name it after the network. Just call it the TV title. You know, their whole division. Like I said, the women's thing was started off wrong. I like Britt Baker. I like Brittany Baker. I like her. You know, they. I know they're trying to make that AEW title relevant by having long title runs every time. It's just drawn out. I mean, I know Roman Reigns right now for WWE's got a long title run, but you don't see that every day. It's like every AEW World Champion, you've got somebody holding it for 6 months plus, and it's too much. It's too much stuff. I mean, they're too long. There needs to be a few short champions. You know, the TNT title, the TBS title, and the tag titles. They're not really that real. You know, they're not really that important. But the AEW title, it's like the important piece. And I could have made an argument for Jericho to have as long a title runs as he could possibly have. But you know, we don't need to keep having these same long ass title runs. You know, so we're just basically seeing what AEW is going to be, if it's going to be around in the next 10 years or 5. It might not make it 5 years. Who knows? This guy looks like he's going to run himself right into the deep end on this. You know, he's just going to. All the air's done been sucked out. All the viewers have seen all of his tricks. There's nothing he can do. There's nothing he could pull. He was saying all that stuff about, you know, how AEW, you know, and Goldust was even in an interview saying how, oh, Vince, you know, watch out. AEW's going to come after you and kick your ass or whatever it was, you know. Yeah, where's that at now? Goldust, you're floundering in the AEW. I wonder how you like it now. Cody's went back to WWE, so I can almost assure you Goldust ain't too far behind. And the only reason he probably didn't go is because he don't wrestle every week, or isn't thought of as a. And even Cody didn't wrestle every week or for the longest time. He just came in and did spot shots. He was trying to be a big shot, trying to get on TV, and all that stuff. See, now he's doing what he should have been doing, and just wrestling. You know, but he was worried about being a big TV star and then doing that reality stuff with Brandy and all that other stuff. That's why, like I said, AEW, they won't have to worry about having too many games out. They won't have to worry about being up long at this current rate. I can't see them lasting too long. So anyway, you know, AEW looks like it's going to be another WCW and another TNA and another, you know, because next thing you know, the networks will be less and less. They'll be something, you know, just like that time they had that Nick Gage on there, and that pizza cutter thing and all that. And then the time they got fined $10,000 for the stunt they put on the pay-per-view with too much blood. So again, it is what it is, you know. But I was an AEW supporter and AEW, trying to be an AEW fan when it first started. I wanted to check it out, wanted to see what it was all about. And now they're just coming WWE centric. You know, they're just copycatting everybody else that's come before them, and that's what's going to lead to their downfall. And then, Derek, he'll be a Hall of Fame. He'll be this or he'll be that. Well, like I said, the writing's on the wall. You can see it. I mean, this Tony Khan guy, he's spinning his wheels at every turn. But he's not. Eventually, the networks are not going to like his content. They're probably already getting tired of it. You know, this is not a public traded company. This is a private company. So if it would be even worse if it was probably publicly traded, because then you'd see the same problem and they'd probably close it down for sure. I mean, I don't know what they're paying CM Punk and these WWE cast-offs, but there's got to be a lot of money tied up in that. And for CM Punk to take less than what he And it's the same stuff he was bitching about, how he was treated, how he thought AEW was going to be any better is anybody's guess. I don't know. But I don't, I'm getting to where I'm phased out now on the wrestling, but I just want to kind of come out here and give my opinion, I've been a lifelong wrestling fan, but AEW just doesn't cut it for me. I just, WWE don't even cut it for me anymore. I mean, I'll sparingly watch, a thing or something there once in a while, but I don't. The wrestling just doesn't do it for me. And CM Punk's doing what all the other wrestlers have done, and that's fall right into that trap. And he swore it off. He told people in interviews, "Oh, I'll never be a wrestling again." And look what happened. Like I said, the only true retirement in professional wrestling is just there was I'm trying to think of somebody. Practically everybody's went back on their word at least once. Stone Cold was about as close as you Stone Cold was about as close as you got. Next to that, probably Shawn Michaels. But again, they came out and wrestled another match. Undertaker, same thing. I don't think he's going to stay retired forever. They'll find a way to get him a match, even if it's against a mid carder or something. But no, I just ain't a big as a wrestling fan. But I seriously think AEW is going to fold. It's just going to take time. But he's already spinning his wheels, and it's showing. There's no way he's going to keep up with this. I don't care if he tries to make ROH his training camp or what. It's showing. It's not going to last. They just they're relying on all these old guys, all these old things, and it's not going to last. I'm sorry. Anybody that's an AEW fan might as well get what you can get out of it. But I wouldn't blame you if you didn't want to watch it. They're struggling to get a little bit over 1 million viewers, and it's only when somebody has a big debut or a big, like Jim Cornette said, it's like a big debut or a big something. It'll always got to go on. So, but otherwise they don't, or some celebrity comes out and then there'll be somebody or a big match. But otherwise it's the same 600,000 people or so, and then 800,000, whatever, and then they'll go up to 1 million, and then they come back down. So eventually that's not even going to be, the millions like the mark today, where 6, 7, 8, 9 million people was the mark in the late 90s. So it shows you the lapsed fans like me and then all of them, we miss the old days. And we just can't, you just can't be brought back in the way that we would like it to be and the way us fans would like it to be. So wrestling is just a thing of the past, for me. But I just kind of want to come out and give a few minutes of a comment on some of this stuff, But I agree, that CM Punk is just like a lot of these WWE cast-offs. They're going to be going right back to Vince. This AEW thing ain't working out too good for CM Punk right now, and I guarantee you he'll admit to it. In later interviews, he'll be like, "Oh, I should have just stayed retired. I should have just stayed home, played with AJ Lee. I should have just took her home, stayed home with her. He's married to her. He ought to just stayed home with her. She's doing comic books with him and all this other stuff, or wrote a book." And he was doing movie projects. It wasn't like he needed this wrestling stuff. He's got stuff. I don't know if he's got kids with her or not, but I'm just saying they had no reason for CM Punk to come back out. He'd already, the highest point he had was his WWE run when he was the WWE champion, and when he was in that thing where he was doing that, how he was straight edge, and I didn't know that's how he was at the time, but it's that's him in real life. And And that was his best hill run. That time when he had old Serena and what you call her, and he had Luke Gallows. That was like 2010ish, probably 2009, 10, somewhere through there. And they had that little deal there. That was it. Other than the time he come WWE champion, that was his biggest two big things he had. It was big storylines. He hasn't really done anything in AEW. I mean, the MJF stuff's okay, and I like that. You know, when they had that big dog collar chain match, whatever. But all the rest of it is just you can gloss over it. You know, it's nothing. After you've seen one CM Punk match, you've seen them all. You know. But anyway, just thought I'd kind of come out and give my opinion on some stuff. But anyway, on the wrestling. But yeah, wrestling's going to be deader than the doornail. You know, one of these days there won't be nothing left to talk about in the next 10 years or 20. But anyway, I'll see you later.